What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we'll be building a mobile application. We're building a quiz app, and we're going to be building it with React Native Expo, and we are using typescript for this project. So this is the project we have here. This is the quiz app, and when I'm running it on my simulator, so this is an iPhone 14 simulator that I'm running it on. So this is basically the view of the quiz app. This is the question. You get to see the question, and then the options to the question. Okay, and then this is sort of a percentage you are currently. So you are 10% complete of the quiz basically, and then you have 1 out of 10 questions to solve. So this is the question. You get to choose your answer. You choose the answer, and then you press next, and then you get to choose press next, choose press next, and so on. So this is how the app works. So as you press next, you notice that the percentage increases, and then the count also increases here. So you have 5 out of 10 questions solved, and then you move on to the next one. You choose your answer, and then you keep proceeding. Next, next, and then the final one, next. Okay, so once you are done with the quiz, you get this pop-up saying quiz complete. You scored 8 out of 10. You get to see the score you had there. You had 8 correct scores out of the 10 questions. So basically, this is the app you'll be building, and you can simply press restart to restart the quiz all over again. Okay, so this is the app we'll be building today. If this looks good, this looks interesting, that you want to try your hands on, then do what to like this video. If you are new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and you can leave your thoughts in the comment section as well. I will very much appreciate it. Okay, so let's go straight into building this application. Like I said, we are going to be using React Native Expo for this application. So let's bootstrap our project with React Native Expo. Okay, so inside this folder, we are going to open a new or create a new folder here. Let's open it in the terminal rather. So inside the terminal, we're going to run command here to I'm simply going to run a command here to start the project with Expo. And we are going to be using TypeScript as well, like I said earlier. So we're going to run this command. So the command is npx expo init, and then the name of the app. So I'm going to name it quiz app YT for YouTube. So you can name it whatever you want, but I'm naming it quiz app YT. And then hit enter, and then it's going to go ahead and start the installation, install all the necessary dependencies for you to start building your application. Okay, so now you get this option to choose from. You can use a blank project, or a blank with TypeScript. So we are going to choose the TypeScript option. The first one is just going to be JavaScript, so we don't want that. We want to use TypeScript. So we are going to choose the TypeScript, press enter, and then it's going to start downloading the dependencies with TypeScript. This is just going to take a few moments. Okay, so the installation is completed. The app is now ready to be started. So as you can see, your project is ready. So what we are going to do next is change directory into the new folder that has been created. So you can see cd quiz app yt, which is the project name. So I'm going to do that, and now we are currently in that directory. So I'm going to do code dot to open this directory in VS Code for me. So by doing that, we can now start building the app, like we said. So this is how it looks like when you start a new Expo project. You get this app.tsx, where it's the main entrance of the application. So anything you have in here is going to be the first thing the user is going to see on the mobile application. So this is the app.tsx and some other files that are in the project setup. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and start building this project. So to start the app, open the package.json. I'm going to see the commands in there. So you can simply, if you are using npm, you can simply use npm start, and it's going to go ahead and start the app for you. But I'm going to be using yarn, and I'm going to be using an iOS simulator. So I'm going to just type in yarn iOS to start this project. So back in here, I'm going to open my terminal. So to open your terminal, you can simply use Command J to open your terminal. So Command J for Mac, and then Control plus J for Windows. So I'm going to type in the command here on iOS to start the app for me in my iOS simulator. It's going to go ahead and open the simulator for me and then start the app. Starting Metro Bagla. Okay, so let's see. Okay, now let me restart the app again. So restart the app again so that it opens in the simulator. Okay, so it's opening on Expo on the simulator. So let me reduce the size of the screen so that you get to see both the simulator and then VS Code. Okay, so let's resize this. And let's minimize this. So that we get to see both screens at the same time. Okay, so the build has completed, and as you can see, this is what we have here. Open app.csx to start working on your app. That's the same thing we see here. So basically, like I said earlier, the app.csx is the entrance of the application. That's why we can see what we have here. So if we edit anything here, you're going to see the changes reflect on the app in real time, as you can see here. So any changes we make is going to be reflected inside the app. So let's clear what we have in here, and then let's start writing our own code. So the first thing we want to do is put everything in here in a safe area view, right? So let's say safe area view, and then I'm going to import it from React Native. So I'm going to have to import it. As you can see here, it has been imported, safe area view from React Native. And then let's bring this one up in here. Okay, so the next thing we want to do now is in the container, right? This container that we have in here, which is the main wrapper for the whole view. We are going to see, we're going to change the background color. Okay, we're going to change the background color to this E4, this color, as you can see as reflected. And then we're going to remove this styling in here. We're going to add a padding. Okay, we are not going to add a padding here. So within the safe area view, we're going to have a style in here, or a view in here. We have a view in here. So what we are about to do here, as you can see, is we are going to add this this 10 out of 10 bar here. So that's what we are coming to add. So put in a text here, and then we say 10 out of 10, or should I say 1 out of 10. And then let's style this. So let's have a style in here. So the style we are coming to use is, we are naming it count wrapper. Let's come in here and install it. We are going to give it a width of 100%, and then we are going to say align items should be center, and then justify content should also be center. So as you can see here, everything is now centered. I'm going to add a padding, vertical padding of 10. Okay, so you can see the spacing on the values. So the next thing we want to do is style the number here. I'm going to say style, and we can style it directly inline. So I'm going to say font weight to be 600, and it should apply on the text. Okay, great. So the next thing we want to do now is this component in here where we can see the question. So that's what the next thing we're about to do. So for that, let's have a view here, and then we're going to add in a style here like so. So for the style, I'm going to paste in a style here just for so that we don't waste too much time on it. And then I'm going to explain the style. Okay, so I've just pasted a style in here. As you can see, this is what we have here now. So one thing we need to add is inside the container, we need to add a padding. So we're going to add a padding in here of, let's say, 20. Okay, so that's that. And let's now explain the style we have here. So we are basically, with this wrapper here component, so adding a margin on the top of 60 pixels, and then we are having a width of 100%, so it should take all the available width, and then we are giving it a height of 180 pixels and a border radius which is causing the edges to be rounded, and then we are having a background color of white and also a padding of 16 pixels, and we are applying a shadow here. So the shadow color we are using is black, and then we are adding an offset with a width of 0 and then height of 0, and then the opacity also is 0.4, and the shadow radius is 5, and we are aligning everything inside this component to be centered basically. So that's what the styling here is. Now the next thing we want to add is this question text in here. So that's the next thing we want to do. So for that, let's add a text component in here, and we are going to put in a style in here. So let's type in the text here. What do we have? Who invented the telephone? So I'm going to say who invented the telephone, like so. So this is our question, and as you can see, I've applied some styling here, giving it a font weight of 500, and then the text is being aligned in the center. So that's that for the text. Now the next thing we want to add here is we want to do this this progress bar you have in here. So that's the next thing we want to do. So to do that, let's have a view here like so, and for that we are going to have this style name. We're going to call it progress wrapper, and then let's add it in here like so. Okay, once again I'm going to paste in the style in here, and then I'm going to explain it. Yes, so as you can see, this is what we have in here. We have given it a width of 70 pixels, a height of 70 pixels, and this background color. The border radius is also 50, causing it to be totally rounded, and then we are aligning items to be centered, and then we're having an overflow of hidden so that nothing gets out of it, and then we're giving it a position of relative. Margin bottom should be 30. That's why it has shifted this one below a little bit, and then margin top of negative 50, which is why it is outside the box, as you can see here. So we are giving it the margin top of negative 50 to be to cross the borders basically. That's why we are doing that. Okay, so that's the next thing we want to do here is to have another view. Okay, let me explain the logic we are using here. So with this component, right, we are going to have another view within this wrapper. Okay, so that view is going to be the progress bar, which is the dark green thingy we have here. That view is going to be the progress wrapper, which would be changing progressively, and you're going to have another view which is going to contain the percentage basically. So that's what we're about to do. So let's have the view in here, which is going to be the progress bar itself. So for that, let's say the style is going to be styles.progress bar, and then let's have it down here I'm going to go ahead and paste in the styles. Okay, so as you can see, I've pasted in the styles, and I've given it a height of 100%. But right now you're not seeing it, but then it has a height of 100%, and then a background color of this color, and then we are aligning itself to the flex end. Okay, so if I add a width, right? If I add a width here of say 40%, we are now going to see it here, as you can see basically. So this value here, we are going to be changing it dynamically using JavaScript based on the percentage of questions that has been completed. It's going to fill up this space. Okay, so that's what we are going to be doing. So this value will be changing progressively. So that's the logic in here. So as it is in here, we're going to add a different component here to cover some portions in here, so that we get a sort of a progress bar, a sense of a progress bar basically. So that's how we're building this component. Okay, so within this view again, so we can simply close here because that's all we need. We're going to create a different view within this progress wrapper. We're going to have a different view, and then with that view also we're going to style it. So I'm going to have a style of progress count. It's coming here, and then let me paste in the yes. So I've pasted it in here, as you can see. So for that one, the height is 58 pixels, and then the width is also 58 pixels. The border radius of 50, making it rounded, as you can see, and then the background color of white, and then I'm giving a z index of 10 basically, so that it stays on top of everything, and then a position of absolute. Now remember that we give its wrapper a position of relative here, which means the absolute should be relative to this wrapper. Okay, so it being absolute is relative to this wrapper, not the whole app. Okay, if you don't apply the relative position here, the absolute you've applied in here is going to be relative to the whole app, so you find the app being somewhere around this place. Okay, that's not what we want. So we need it to be relative to its wrapper. Okay, that's why we have the position relative in here. So we are setting it the position to be absolute, and then we are having a top of 6, and then we are aligning everything to be centered, and then justify content should also be center, which means everything inside this thing, this component, should be the center. Okay, so in there we now add the text, which is going to be our progress bar, like the percentage that we have. So let's say 60, right? So we are going to see it in the center, like so. And for that also we're going to add a style in here, style.percentage, and then you're going to have it in here. Let's go ahead and paste it in here like so. So as you can see, we have the value here. So with a font weight of 600, font size of 18, and then we are using this color. Yes, so basically that's for the question components. The next thing we want to do is add this options tab here. That's what we are going to do next. So to do that, let's go ahead, and down here we are going to add a new view, and then for this view we are going to style it. Okay, so we're going to call it options wrapper, style.options wrapper. And we come down here, and then we apply the styles. Okay, once again I'm going to go ahead and then paste in the styles. Okay, so the only styles we have there is what margin top, and then the width of 100% basically. So the next thing we want to do here now is this. Okay, we are going to create a component for this item. So this is an option, right? So I'm going to create a component. We are going to make it a component, so that we get to reuse the components and use the to know how like efficient React Native is basically. So we're going to create a component for this options here, and for that component I'm going to call it option. Okay, I'm going to call it option. Right now it's undefined, so we're going to get an error. So let's go back in here, and then we're going to create a new folder. We're going to create a new folder in here, and we are going to call it components. And then inside the components we're going to create a new file called option.tsx. So this is it. So we're going to say rnfes to give us a React Native snippet, like so, and then we get it here. So now that we've created a component, let's go and import it here so that the error will go away. I'm going to import it here. So now it's imported, and then we're going to see the option tab here. Now let's go ahead and start styling the or start building the option component. So the first thing we want to do here is style this wrapper. Okay, so since the option here is pressable, we are not going to use a view, but we are going to use touchable opacity from React Native. Okay, we're going to use touchable opacity, and for that one, we are going to style it as well. So the touchable opacity gives us the effect of it being pressed, basically. Okay, so we're going to style it. We're going to say star equals styles dot option, like so. And let's go ahead and then have it in here like this. I'm going to paste in the styles here as well. Okay, so that's that. So we are giving it a width of 100%, a height of 45, a border radius of 16, a padding horizontal of. Now let me set the background color so that you see the changes. Set the background color of white here, like so. Okay, so you can now see the full view of the option. Okay, so we are saying that the width should be 100%, and then the height should be 45 pixels, a border radius of 16, padding horizontal of 12, and then we are putting everything in the center, justifying center, meaning we are centering it vertically, and then we are having a margin top or a margin bottom of 20 pixels, and then this background color. Okay, so now if you press on it, you can notice that it's being shown that it is actually being pressed. Okay, so that's the use of the touchable opacity. But then the opacity is too much. Okay, it's almost as if everything is gone. So we can reduce the opacity here by changing the active opacity value to 0.8, like so, to reduce how the opacity. Okay, so now when you press it, it is changing. It is the effect is there, but then it has been reduced. Okay, just like how we want it. Okay, so for the text, let's paste in the style in here. So for the option, we are just going to say that the font weight should be 500. Okay, so let's change this to Nicola Tesla. Okay, so now when we come back to the app.css, we can simply create duplicates, and then it's going to be duplicated here as like so. So as you can see, this is the options tabs that we have in here. Okay, so the next thing we want to do now is add the button we have here. Okay, that's the next thing we want to do. So once again, I'm going to use touchable opacity, and then it's going to be imported from. Okay, so the spelling I've done in here is wrong. That's why we're getting this error. It's supposed to be touchable opacity, and then we import it from React Native. And let's go ahead and style it. So we're going to give it style to be styles.btn, and then let's come over here and then style it. Okay, so once again, I'm going to go ahead and paste in the styling here for the button. Yeah, so as you can see, this is the button, and then we're also going to change the opacity to 0.8, and then let's add a text in here, and then we're going to say next, like so. Okay, so let's go over the style for the button. So for the button, we are giving it a width of 100%, a height of 50 pixels, a border radius of 16 to get its rounded edges, and then the background color of this color, and then justify content center. That's why we have the text here to be in the center. Align item center also as well. So we are centering it vertically centered and then horizontally centered as well. That's why it is directly in the center. And then we are giving it a margin top of 20 pixels here. Okay, so for the text here also, we can style it directly in line. We're going to see the color should be white, and then font weight should be 600, like so. So we are going to say it's being applied here. So that's our button. Good. So at this point, I think we are done with the view or the UI for the app. We can now go ahead and start adding the logic to it, and then start seeing dynamic data and see the questions being changed. And you can select new questions, select the answer, and then proceed from there. Okay, good, good. So the next thing we want to do now is create a new file in here, right? So I'm going to create a new file in here, and I'm going to call it questions. Okay, questions.ts. Now this is going to be like where we are going to be getting our questions from. I'm going to paste in the questions, and then every question and its options, and then the answers for that particular question. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it in here. Yes, so this is it. As you can see, you are doing export cons quiz data. So this is the quiz data, and for it's an array of objects, right? And for every object, you can see it has a property of question, which is the question, and then a property of options, which is an array of all the options, and then the answer. So this object, you can see the question is what is the capital of Canada, and you get these options, which is saying Ottawa, Toronto, Calgary, and then Edmonton. So these are the options for this particular question, and then the correct answer, as you can see, is here, which is Ottawa. So that's for every object. This is the format for every object for every single question we have in here. So this is the question data that we'll be using in our app. Okay, so first things first, we're going to be creating a couple of states, right? So we're going to be creating a couple of states to keep the state of the application. Okay, first of all, we are going to set one called let's say use state, and then we're going to call this we're going to call it questions. Oh, my bad. I'm going to call it questions, and then let's change it this to capital Q, and let's import use states. Okay, and then it's going to be an array here like this. So this is where I'm going to be storing all the questions that we have in here. Okay, so first of all, the next thing we want to do now is make sure that anytime the app builds or anytime the app is built, we are filling in this questions array with the question data that we have in here. Okay, so that's what we're about to do. So we're going to use the use effects hook to do this. Okay, so let's import the use effects. Let's import it so that it stops screaming at us. And then the first thing we want to do here is set these questions to the quiz data here basically. Okay, so as you can see, we are importing the quiz data from the file we have it in here, which is the questions file. Okay, so we are importing it here, and then on launch of the app, we are setting all the array items into this array here. So we are going to have it in a state. So you can see that it is underlined here showing some error. That's not a big deal. We can simply, since it's TypeScript, it is giving us some type error. So we can just escape it using this any here. It is going to go ahead and escape the error for us. Okay, so basically at this point, all the questions in here, all the questions in this array is now being filled inside this array. So we have all the questions inside this array once the app has launched. Basically, okay. Okay, so the next thing we want to do now is to track. We're going to add a few more options here for the use states. So the next thing we want to do now, so what we can see here is the next one is current questions index, and then set current question index. So I just simply pasted a few states in here. So for this one, current question index is basically going to keep track of the current question we are on. So as we already know, all the questions are inside this questions array, and I would like to know what index we are currently. Okay, so as you already know, every array has index. We want to know the index. This current question index is going to give us the index of the question that we are currently in. Okay, so if we are on the question 3, it's going to show us that it is index 2, because as we already know, if it is 3, the index is 3 minus 1, which is 2. Okay, so this is going to keep track of the current question that we have. And then we have this state here called score, and then set score, which is going to keep track of the scores, how many correct answers we have. And then this one is also going to keep track of the selected option. So if you choose this option, it's going to keep track of it. If you choose whatever option, it's going to keep track of the selected option. Okay, so with that being said, let's now have this. We now have this current question in here. So this is a variable that I'm setting, right? So the current question is what questions, which is what all the questions in here. As you already know, it's an array. Okay, so an array, and we have this array box in here with the index. Okay, so currently this current question index is what 0. So we are basically saying that inside this questions array, give us the first item. So it's going to give us the first question inside all the questions array. Okay, so that's what we are going to be using here. So current question here, we are going to be replacing this question, who invented the telephone. I'm going to be replacing it with the actual question we have in our question data. Okay, so to do that, we are going to paste the current question in here. Let's add this undefined optional chain dot question. Okay, so the reason why we are having this this question mark here is called optional chain. So since it will take a little time for the questions here to be populated. Okay, so before it gets populated, the state of this value is undefined. We need to be able to handle that undefined value. So we are simply telling the app that for some time it's going to be undefined, and then it's no longer going to be undefined. So wait for it to be defined. Once it is defined, then use the question value. Okay, so that's what we are doing here. So current question dot question, basically referring to the question value we have here. So as you can see, it has the index of 0, which is the first question is what is the capital of Canada? And as you can see here, it's not being reflected here. What is the capital of Canada? Okay, so that's the question. That is the question in here. Okay, so the next thing we want to do now is we need to update something inside the options component. So we are going to add something called props. Okay, I'm going to add some props. First of all, I'm going to say interface. Since you are using TypeScript, you need to set the types. Props, and you're going to say option. We need a value of the option. So it's a type of string. It has a type of string, and then within here we're going to put in the props, and then we can now call the option in here. And then instead of having this Nikola Tesla thingy here, we can replace it with the option here, like so. So at this point, all the option components we have here is expecting one prop called what option. Okay, you need to place a value there for it. So it's compulsory to have an option value for every option component. Okay, so as you can see, there's nothing in here because we haven't added any value. So the value we are going to be adding is this, right? So I'm going to see current question dot options, which is an array, right? And then the first value, which is index of 0. Okay, so let me just copy this and then replace everything here with that, and then we can change this to 1, 2, and then 3. So as you can see, it's now populating the options with the actual values inside the array of options that we have. So options, you can see Ottawa being the first one, Toronto being the second one, Calgary being the third one, and then Edmonton being the next one. Okay, good. So now that that's being populated, now let's add a logic for the next button. So what we want to do now is when we press the next button, we want it to check if the answer that we've selected is correct. Okay, we want to check if the answer that we've selected is correct. If it is correct or not, it is going to now move the value to next. When you press it, it's going to increase we want it to increase the current question index to by 1, so that we get the data for all the next questions. Okay, so we are going to create a function here called handle next, and then let me paste this in here. Okay, so for handle next is once we press this button, this function is going to run. What we are saying here is that if the current question index, which is this one, is less than the current questions dot length minus 1, which means if the current question that we are on is not the last question, we are going to set the current question index to whatever it is plus 1. Okay, so previous question plus 1, basically. So the current question index, we are setting 8 plus 1. So once you press next, it's going to increase this value to 1, and then it's going to move to the next. It's going to increase the current question index by 1, and then once that is increased, the current question here will be increased from 0 to 1, and then it's going to be picking the next question inside the questions array, basically. So that's what we are doing in here. So let's add this function in here. So we're going to say on press, and then we paste this function in here. Okay, so now if we press the questions and then the options should change. As you can see, it's changing. What is the chemical symbol for water? And then you get the options, it keeps changing. Okay, exactly what we want it to be. Good, good, good. So now what we want to do now, add now. So you notice that once we hit the last question, we get to see um, quiz completes. Your score was this, your score was that. Okay, so you need to add another state for that to show that let's say show results here, and it's going to be a boolean. So once the question is completed, we're going to set show results to true so that it shows the results. Okay, so I'm going to say else set show results to true. So this is going to go ahead and show results for us once the quiz is completed. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to check if which option is selected. Okay, so you notice that when you press on an option, it should highlight that it has been selected, right? You want to be able to know if that option has been selected so that it gives it a highlight of a background color. Okay, so that's what we are going to be doing next. So we are going to add a state here. I'm going to call it, let's call it check if selected, and then we are going, let's change this to, okay, so it's going to be an object, right? So yes, we're going to take this option. So as you can see, it's an object with one key, option 1 being false, option 2 being false, option 3 and option 4. So they are currently all false. Okay, and we're going to see how we're going to use this option here. So in our option components that we have here, let's enter the option component. And what we want to do is we want to change the background color when an option is selected or an option is pressed. Okay, that's what we want to do now. Okay, so what we want to do here is to add a prop here called selected, right? So selected here is going to be a boolean. So let's make it is selected to show that that option has been selected. Okay, so it's selected. So what we are going to do here now is at this component that we have here with the style right now, currently it's using this option style. Okay, but we want to update it, right? So I'm going to put the style in an array so that we add new dynamic styles to it. So we add some javascript to the styling. Okay, so we're going to wrap it in an array form like this so that we can add extra stylings, inline stylings to it. So what we are going to do now, I'm going to paste in a style in here, and then we are going to say is selected. Okay, so what this simply means is, let me bring this one down. So what this simply means is that if for the background color of this particular component, right, if it's selected, which is a boolean here, if it's selected is true, then we're going to use this color. Now this color is a green color, a greenish color, and if it's selected here is true, the background is going to be green. But if it is false, it is going to be white, which is this hash FFF. So currently it is false, so that's why we can still see that all the options have a background color of white. So now when we go back, you can see that we are getting an error here because a TypeScript error here because it is expecting a prop called what is selected. Okay, so you see as I place the is selected there here, meaning it's true. That's why the background here has now changed to the greenish color I added. So let's set it to false for now, and let's do the same thing here. Let's do the same thing here. Let's do the same thing here. Okay, so if we change this to true, you can see that it's going to change. The background has changed as we want it. Good. So this is hard-coded values, right? We want it to be dynamic. So instead of having this false, false, true, false here, what we are going to do is insert these values here. So we want the option 1 and then the option 2, option 3. We want these values over there rather. So let's pick the check if selected here, and then we are going to place it here. So instead of having the false, we're going to say check if selected dot option 1. Okay, so it's going to pick the value of option 1. If it's true or false, it's going to be applied there, and if it's the same thing applies to the rest. So we're going to do the same thing here, dot option 2 dot option 3 dot option 4, like so. So all the options are false, so that's why I can see that the background is white. So if I come in here and change this to true, we should see it change the background color here, like so, as you can see. If I change this one also to true, the third option is going to have the background of green. Okay. So let's undo that and set them all to false currently. Good. So now we're going to be creating some functions, right? We're going to be creating some functions that is going to handle the background color changes. Okay, it's going to be handling the background color changes. That's so the function that we are adding is, I've just pasted it in here. The first one is what? Check option 1. So this function will be checking the state of option 1. Okay, so we are setting check if selected here. Set check if selected. We are setting it what? So as you already know, by default all the values here are false, but then for option 1 we are setting it to true, and then we are setting the remaining ones to false. Okay, so we are going to be replicating the same thing for the other functions. So check option, we're going to change this to option 2, and then we are going to bring this back to false, which is the option 1. We're going to bring it back to false, and then we're going to change the option 2 to true, meaning we want, on when this function hits, we want to set all the other options to false, but for the option 2 we want to set it to true. Okay, so that's the whole idea here. We do the same thing for option 3, and then let's change this to false. Then when we come to the third option, we're going to set it to true. Okay, and then the final one here, check option 4, like so, and then we're going to set this to false, and then for the option 4 is going to be true here. Now why are we adding this option? Why are we adding this function? Why are we creating these functions? We'll be using them in the option components here. Okay, we're going to be using them in the option components. Let's add a prop here. Let's call it check if selected. Okay, it's going to be a function, so let me create it like this. So this is the type. It's going to return a void, so it's not going to be basically saying it's a function, but it won't be returning anything. That's why we have the void here. So let's add this property here, and then let's create a function here called handle select. Okay, that's fine. And then let's call the check if selected here. Okay, now this handle select is going to be called once, anytime the option has been selected. Okay, anytime the option has been selected, this function is going to run. So let's say on press, and then we are going to paste in this handle selected function here, like so. Okay, so now you can see that back to our app, it's giving us a new type error. Okay, that's because it's now expecting a new prop called what? Check if selected. Okay, it's now expecting the new. So for the first option, right, we are going to place in the function we just created for check option 1. Okay, so that's going to be the function for that particular one, and then we do a similar thing here, but we're going to use 2, and then we do a similar thing here, paste it in here, but I'm going to use 3, and then finally we add the fourth one, which is what? 4. Okay, great. So at this point, if we press any of the options, this function should run. So if we press the first option, which is this one, this function should run, and then it should set option 1 to true, and then set the remaining values to false. So once if you press here, the background should change to green, like so. As you can see, it's now green. And if I press here, this one changes to green, and then the other parts becomes false. Okay, so we press here, and you can see the changes take effect, like so. Okay, that's great. So that's that for this particular side of things. Now we need to update our next function. Okay, handle next function. So since we've now added this option, once we press the next button, we want it to set everything here to false, because currently if we press the next, this value is still true. Okay, which means it will be automatically selected as this option, the final option. So as you can see, if I press next, you see the final one is still selected. We don't want that. So what we are going to do here is to update. Once we press the next, we want to update everything to false. Okay, you want to update everything for the set check if selected to false, like this. So we are setting the state here, everything here, we are setting it to false once you press next. So as you can see, this is selected. So if I press next, it's going to clear everything and make it false, and then everything is fresh again, exactly how we want it to be. Good. Now, how are we going to know if the selected option is correct? Okay, so we're going to set a variable called correct answer, like this. So let correct answer be questions, which is an array, and then the current index. So that particular question that we are on, we are picking its answer. Okay, so this is the correct answer. This variable here is going to hold the correct answer of every question. Okay, and then we are going to check if the selected answer is equal to the correct answer. So that's going to check if the selected answer that the user has pressed is equal to the actual correct answer. Okay, so we're going to see if selected option is equal to correct answer. We're going to do this. We're going to set score to whatever score is +1. Okay, so that's what we have done here. So mind you, the selected option simply is the option that the user has selected. Okay, the selected option is the option that the user has selected. Right now we are not setting the value of the selected option yet. We will do that. So once we set it, we are going to check if the selected option is equal to correct answer, and then we are going to do what? We are going to update if it is equal to and it is correct. We are going to update the score, and then we are going to add an additional value to it, or +1 to it, to increase the score of that particular value. Okay, good. Now this set selection, currently we are not setting the selected value. So if a user selects this and press next, we are not updating the state of the selected value. So let's do that right now. So back inside our, let's copy this back into our option component, and we are going to add another prop here called set selected option, and then it's also going to be of type any. Okay, because it's basically a set state value, and then we're going to call it here, and then what we are going to do is set the selected option to option. And remember that option here is the value, okay, the text here. So you can see as we place the option here, we placed it inside the text here, the text component here, indicating that that's the value of the option, okay, or the title of the option, if you may put it. Okay, so we are setting the value of the option to this set selected option state, and then it's going to be reflected in the back in our app.csx file. It's going to be reflected in our option component. Okay, right now we are getting this type error because we are not giving the prop a value. Okay, so let's do that right now. We already have the state here, so we're going to place the value in there. Okay, to update the state and place this in here, and then we're going to do the same thing here, basically. So it's going to keep track of the selected options, basically. So at this point, once a user press an option, the value is being stored inside this state, this selected option state. Okay, so right now, currently, since the value is on mark twine, it means the value of selected option is what? Is mark twine. And if I press here, it will change towards J.K. Rowling. If I press here, it's going to change to Stephen King. So it's anytime an option is pressed, the value or the state of this selected option is going to be updated. Okay, and that's how we are going to check if the selected answer is correct. As you can see here, so selected option is equal to correct answer. If it is equal to correct answer, I'm going to increase the score basically. Okay. Now, one thing also that we need to do is update the count of the number of questions we've solved. Okay, currently it is just a default value that we have here. So let's do that right now. Instead of having 1 out of 10 here, we are going to do something else. So what we are going to do here is, instead of having this one here, we are going to put the current question index. So remember, the current question index represents the question, the index of the current question, okay, that we are on. So currently it is 0. That's why you can see here being 0, but we don't want it to be 0. We want it to start from 1. Okay, I want to start from 1. So we're going to say current question index plus 1. So currently we're on the first question in our array. That's why you can see 1 over here. And then we know that we have 10 questions, but assuming we had more than 10 questions, we are simply going to say questions dot length, like so. Okay, and let's use an optional chaining here. So yeah, obviously the length of our question is what is 10. That's why we are seeing 1 out of 10. But if I go back into this question and let's say I duplicate this like this, it's going to increase. The value is going to increase. So as you can see, we now have 11 questions, so it is 1 out of 11. Okay, so let me clear this here. Good. So now let's update this this component as well, so that the percentage here is going to reflect the percentage of questions that the player has solved basically. Okay, so to do that, we are going to update something in our handle next function. Where is it? Okay, this is it. We're going to do something here. Okay, instead of the handle next function, we're going to rather use a use effect block to check the percentage. Okay, so I'm going to paste the use effect block function here, and we need to also keep the state of the percentage. That's why I'm getting this error here. So let me create a new state here, and then I'm going to call it, create the state here, and I'm going to call it percentage complete. Like so. Let's change this, and then we're going to change the value here to be 0, like this. So currently 0%. So what we are having here now is this. Okay, in the use effect block that we have currently here, what it's going to do is, once the app starts, we are setting a variable here called percentage. Okay, so current question index, which could be 0. Let's say it's 0. Then we add plus 1 to it. Okay, we add plus 1 to it. So if it is 0 plus 1, meaning 1 times 10 basically. So 1 times 10 is 10. And then if the value increases to 1, then it becomes 1 plus 2. So 2 times 10 is 20. So I'm going to get 20. But this is not efficient. Okay, this is not efficient. Using this is not efficient. We can simply write the formula for this particular scenario. So we are going to use this value rather. Okay, so percentage, we are setting the percentage to be equal to the current question index plus 1. Okay, the same logic here, but then we are dividing it by the questions dot length. Okay, so the length of the questions that we have, so the number of questions that we have, so this is going to be 1 divided by 10 times 100 basically, so that we get a percentage. Okay, this is simple math here. So once we do that, we're going to get a value of the percentage, and then we are setting the percentage complete, which is our state here, to the value of percentage. Okay, so we're getting it to percentage, and then we are going to place the value in our state. Okay, so percentage complete, we're going to be placing it in our state. So instead of having this default 60 here, I'm going to clear it, and then we're going to put the value percentage complete over here. So as you can see, currently it's 10. So if I choose a value here and I say Ottawa, now note something here, that inside our use effect block, we have this current question index in this dependency array here. What it's simply saying is use effect by default runs only once. So like this function for this use first block, for instance, it runs only once. But since we have this dependency array over here, which is the current questions index, anytime the value of current question index changes, this function or this block runs again. It reruns. Okay, it reruns anytime this value changes. That's why we have this current question index there in the block scope. So now it is at 10%, right? So if I press next, it changes to 20. Okay, if I select an answer and press next, the value changes, and you can see 3 out of 10 questions. Very good. So we can now continue to the next thing to do. So the next thing we want to do now is, you can notice that over here, as the value changes. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. So what we want to happen now is we want the progress bar to update anytime the percentage changes. Okay, so we want to use the percentage to update the value of the progress bar or the state of the progress bar. So to do that, what we are going to do now is, where we have the components, right? This is it. Okay, this is it, the progress bar. This is where we have the progress bar. We are going to make some changes there. So currently, if you go to where the styling is, we have given it a width of 40%, which is a default width. Okay, we are going to remove this value there, because we are going to be changing the width dynamically based on the progress that we've made. So within the styling here, we're going to add an array here to add in more styling options. Okay, so we're going to say that the width is going to be, we're going to use backticks, right? So that we can add in some JavaScript values. So we're going to see, we're going to use the percentage complete value here. I'm going to say percentage complete, and I'm going to add our percentage sign here to indicate the percentage that we've done. So as you can see, it immediately changes to be 10%. So this is currently 10%. That's why you can see this tiny thing here. Okay, so if we move on to the next question, it should increase to 20%. So as you can see, the value is increasing. If you change, the value increases. If you change, the value increases. If you select, the value increases, just like we wanted. Okay, so that is that. So when we move on, now the next thing we want to do is add the results screen. Okay, we want to add a results component that when we are done with everything, we get to see the scores that we've made. Okay, so to do this, we are going to create a component, right? But first of all, remember that we added a value here, we added a state here within our handle next function. We said that if current question index is less than questions.length minus 1, which is if we are not at the end of our questions, let's update the question index. Okay, basically let's move on to the next question. But if you are done with the question, you are going to set show results here to be true. Okay, so if show results here is true, which is this state, we want to show a component. Okay, we're going to show a component called, we're going to create this component. So what I'm going to say in here now is, if show result is true, we are going to return a component called, let's call it results. Okay, we haven't created it yet, so let's go ahead and create it. So if show results here is true, it's going to return this component instead of returning everything we have here. Okay, that's basically what we are saying over here. So let's go ahead and create that component. So within our components folder, we're going to create that component, results.tsx, and then let's go ahead and use our snippet here. So that component is created. We can now go ahead and import it. Okay, so I'm going to import this component like so. Okay, so right now show result is false. Okay, show result is false. That's why we can see everything here, which is this component. So if I go ahead and update show results to be true here, we can see it change, as you can see. So now we are seeing show results here like so. Okay, so that component is now being replaced by the main quiz display. So let's change it back to false, and okay, let's change it back to true because we want to work on it. Okay, so now it's true. Back into the results component, we are going to we are going to design that screen. So what we want to do first of all is add a style to it. Okay, so I'm going to call this styles.container, like so. And then what we are going to say is we're going to give it flex of 1, and then we're going to align items. We're going to align items center, and then justify content also should be center, like so. So now you can see that the results is in the center. So we're going to give it a background color of this color here, like so. So it's going to take this color, and then we're going to set a padding of 20 pixels here, like so. So the next thing we want to do now is add the main component for, or the view for our results. So the box that's going to contain our results. Okay, so we're going to call it, we're going to add a style in here. I'm going to call it styles, but let's call it wrapper basically, and then let's start it here. So I'm going to paste in the style in here, like so. Okay, so that's the updates that you can see in here. So we are giving it a width of 100%, a height of 200 pixels, a background color of white. We're giving a border radius of 20. That's why the edges are rounded. And then we are aligning everything inside this box to be in the center, and then we are saying justify content to also be center, and we are giving it a padding of 16 pixels. So that's the wrapper of our results component. So the next thing we want to do is add this text here, say quiz complete here, like so. So you can see it here. And then we are going to add a style in here. It's going to be an inline style, and I've pasted it in there. So you can see we are giving it a font weight of 600, a font size of 16, and we are giving it this color. So you can see it's being updated here. So that's that. So we're going to add another text here, which is going to hold the scores. So it's basically going to say you scored, like so. Okay, then we place the score below it. But first, let's start it. I'm going to paste in its style here. So the style we are giving basically is we're giving it a margin vertical of 20 pixels, meaning there's going to be a margin at the top and the bottom, and then a font weight of 500. Yeah. And then the next text here is going to be the score value basically. So it's going to be, let's say you scored 7 out of 10. Okay, that's going to be your score. Okay, so now let's start it. So that's its style. We are giving it a font weight of 700, and then a font size of 16, and then we're giving it a color of this color. Yeah, as you can see, it's update here. So right now this is a hard-coded value. Okay, this is a hard-coded value. We want an actual score, the actual score that we had. Okay, so we're going to, and we don't need to create an interface. You can simply place it in here like this. So we're going to add it here, and then we're going to say score. Now score is going to be a number. Okay, it's going to be a number, and then we can place it in here. So we are going to place the value of score in here, like so. Okay, so whatever score the user gets, if it is 5, if it is 7, if it is 8, is going to be placed here. Okay, so as you can see back here, it's now screaming at us that it needs a prop called score. Okay, we already have the value of score, so we can simply place it in here like so. Remember, we are increasing the value of score here. If the user selects an option which is correct, we are increasing score +1. Okay, so it's been increased here. So back So currently it is 0 because the user hasn't scored any points, so it's going to be 0 here. Okay, now here you can notice I'm having this hard-coded 10 value here, so I'm going to leave it as 10, but you can obviously update it to match the number of questions you have in your questions array. Okay, but I'm simply going to leave it here like so. Great. So the next thing is we want to add a button. Okay, we want to add a button here that when you press is going to restart the quiz for you again. So we're going to say touchable opacity, and then let's import it. Let's import it from React Native. I'm going to add a text in here. I'm going to say restart, like so. Okay. So now let's style the button. So I'm going to say the style is styles.etn, and then I'm going to style it. I'm going to paste in the styling for this button. So this is the button. As you can see, it has updated here. So we are giving it a width of 100 pixels, a height of 40 pixels, a border radius of 10 to give it these rounded edges. And we're going to say align item center, which means the text should be in the center there, and justify content center to be vertically centered or horizontally centered. And the background color of this color, and then we're giving it a margin top of 20 pixels. So that's what we have here. We have this nice looking button here. Now, as you can see, if you press it, the opacity is too strong, so we can simply reduce it here by saying active opacity should be 0.8. Okay. So right now, when you press it, so you notice that when you press it, nothing happens, right? Nothing happens. We need to set a function. Okay, we need to set a function that when you press on it, something should happen. Okay, we are not going to write the function here, so we are going to add it as a prop in here called restart. There's going to be a function that doesn't return anything, so that's restart, and then we're going to call it here, and then we are going to say on press, then we call the restart function. Right now, I have not created a function. We need to create it in our app.tsx file, and as you can see, it is screaming at us because it is expecting a property over here. So let's add it. So let's create the function called restart. So we're going to be a function, and then for restart, we are simply going to be updating some states here. Okay, like so. So first of all, what we are going to do is we are going to update a set score to 0. So whatever score you had, we are changing it to 0, and then we are setting the current question index to 0, meaning you want it to restart again on the first index. And then we are going to say set show results to be false. So once you press on it, we're going to set it to false, and then this component will leave and then show the quiz screen again. Okay, so let's add the restart function here. Restarts, like so. Okay, so now the function is supposed to be working, and it's still here because we've updated the value hard coded here. So right now it's true. I'm going to set it to false over here by default for the show results. Okay, so currently it's false. So now unless you, so this is a bug here that is being caused by the math equation here. Okay, so as you can see, the percentage here is using this math function, current question index plus 1 divided by question dot length times 100, and for some reason it's getting some infinity value. The decimals is not being rightfully placed, which is causing us to get this infinity value. Okay, so the work around it is to use this option here rather. Okay, let's percentage, but I mean you can work around it and try and find a fix to it, but for now we're going to be using this. We're going to say let percentage to be current question index plus 1 times 10. So whatever value you have times 10, and then you're going to get a percentage. Okay, so we're going to keep this for now. Okay, so let's just, we're going to maintain this back. Okay, so if we press next, it should update. All right, so let's continue to the end. and then see if the result is going to be displayed. See hat Asia Graham Bell. Okay, great. So as you can see, we now have the results page here where you can see quiz completed. Your score, we scored 9 out of 10, and we can now restart the quiz all over again. So we select. So I'm going to deliberately select some wrong answers to see it change dynamically. So we choose some few correct answers as well. Skin Asia. Yes, so as you can see, now we have 6 out of 10 as our score. Great. So yeah, basically this is the app. We now have a fully built working functioning quiz app where we can see the values or the percentage that we've done, and then we can go ahead and select our options and see it's being selected, and then press next, proceed to the next questions, fix questions, solve questions, and then you are going to finally see your scores as well and know what you got at the end of the quiz. Like so you scored 10 out of 10 here perfectly. This is a perfect score. Okay, great. So at this point you are done with the quiz app, and if you are watched up to this point, congratulations, you've made it this far and you now have a working quiz app. So yes, today you've learned a whole lot about React Native and how to use TypeScript as well, and then in building this particular project. Now what you can also go ahead and do is add in some more questions inside your your questions array. Currently we only have 10 questions. You can go ahead and add in more questions as you please, and then you can also do it in such a way that if, let's say, inside your question array right now you have only 10, you can add more, say 50 questions. Okay, but then you will be selecting 10 questions randomly all the time. Okay, so for every question, for every session, you are going to be displaying 10 questions, but then they are going to be randomly picked out of the pool of 50 questions at all times. So when you hit restart, you're going to get a new set of 10 questions basically. So you can add a little twist to the app and make it suit how you want it to be. If maybe you like to add a previous button as well, so you can go back and then change your values, whatever the case may be. So you can play around it and add in new features to the app as well. Okay, so once again, if you've made this far, you've done very well, and hopefully you've learned a lot in this process and you have a working quiz app. So if this video was helpful, do well to hit the like button, and if you are new to this channel, do well to subscribe to the channel as well, and you can leave your thoughts in the comment section as well. I really appreciate it very much. Okay, thank you very much once again for your time, and catch you in the next video.